That's right!
Welcome to The Know, I'm Ashley Jenkins.
I'm Mica Burton.
It's no surprise there's a shortage of Switches right now. We know it, you know it, Nintendo definitely knows it. No one will stop talking about it except for the people who talk about how they're readily available in their stores, but this whole shortage thing might actually not be going away anytime soon.
Well, gosh darn it. While Switches are continuing to fly off the shelves, Nintendo says that it's now ramping up production of the console. But that might be easier said than done.
Nintendo.
Yeah, thank you for ramping up production of this console that's flying off the shelves. But it turns out that some of the parts that go into the Switch are in short supply and that there's a lot of competition to get them.
Okay, and when we say competition, apparently Nintendo is going up against so much bigger players for things like flash memory chips, like Apple big. And some say that these supply issues could end up continuing for the rest of this year, which honestly could be a huge problem for Nintendo this holiday.
Now, it's no secret that the Switch has suffered from shortages since its launch in March. People have pretty much immediately snatched up the hybrid machine, which sold 2.74 million units in its debut month, beating analysts' expectations by just a lot.
And ever since then, the Switch has stayed pretty sold out pretty everywhere. As the Financial Times noted, the Switch continues to sell out within a few hours of arriving at retailers. Analyst Daniel Ahmad said the same thing, tweeting, "I've done a few retail checks and Switch is still instantly selling through each shipment." And I think GameStop even said that most of the units they get allocated don't make it to stores because they get ordered online before they make the journey.
That's just impressive. But of course, in the short term, shortages are a good sign for Nintendo because that means that they have a product that, people want. But if the shortage of Switches continues, at some point, gamers' patience might just run out and they could move on to the next shiny thing.
Or just buy a 2DS XL and be like, here's your Nintendo and it's cheaper, son. So all of this shortage stuff has prompted Nintendo to boost production of the Switch because they say they're worried about customer tantrums, especially come November when Nintendo will release Mario Odyssey and demand is going to ramp up again. I mean, keeping in mind too that there's going to be there's going to be Splatoon 2, there's going to be ARMS. They're trying to generate all these peaks, but they need consoles in order to get the peaks. There's the holiday season too, which is basically just the Super Bowl for game consoles. And that's when parents and loved ones are much more likely to buy consoles and games as gifts. But if they can't find it, they're gonna buy something else because they gotta get that gift.
Various sources are now saying Nintendo will produce anywhere from 18 to 20 million Switches for the next 12 months, ending in March of next year, up from Nintendo's original goal of only 10 million. So
that's a lot.
That's a pretty big increase.
But, as we said, maybe easier said than done.
The Wall Street Journal reported that Nintendo's ability to produce more Switches could be hindered by a shortage of components that are used in a variety of devices, like smartphones and servers, not to mention, game consoles.
Sure.
Those items include flash memory chips, liquid crystal displays, and tiny little motors that are used in the Switch's Joy-Cons, so you feel the ice cubes and stuff.
Gotta be able to count them.
Yeah.
Nintendo isn't the only company that needs those things. Smartphone makers like Apple need many of the same components to make iPhones, and companies that make servers are gobbling up flash memory chips. Honestly, Apple's the one that worries me the most because they have a new iPhone coming this year, and they're going to be getting as much of that hardware as they can, and they're such a huge player with so much money available to them that they can pretty much elbow out anyone if they try hard enough.
It's true. The Wall Street Journal quoted a Toshiba spokeswoman who said, "Demand for our NAND flash memory has been overwhelmingly greater than supply, and the situation is likely to stay for the rest of the year. That demand comes from data centers and smartphone makers like Apple," the spokeswoman said.
So all that means Nintendo is now competing with some very, very big players for supply parts. That's a huge problem because Apple can make larger orders for parts and offer better terms to suppliers than Nintendo can because they've got how many hundreds of billions of dollars in the bank right now?
Lots of it.
I mean, look, Nintendo is not a small company by any means, but it is in comparison to behemoths like Apple.
I was gonna say, would it be like apples and oranges? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry! I'll quit now. Here's my resignation. Goodbye. Of course, Nintendo could offer to pay more for parts, but that could mean that the cost of producing a Switch might rise above its $299 price. That's not unheard of in console manufacturing. Others have been produced at a loss early in their life cycles.
Most consoles, actually. Nintendo's a rare one.
Oh, well then there you have it. But the Wall Street Journal says that Nintendo president Tatsumi Kimishima has said he doesn't want to sell Switches at a loss.
Who does?
Who wants to lose things?
It's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to make a profit? Do you want to sell at a loss?
It's tough to decision.
So we'll see what ends up happening, but in the meantime, all of the demand for a Switch has been great for Nintendo's stock price, which has hit its highest point since the glory days of the Wii in 2008. And actually, other companies have seen a boom too, thanks to the Switch.
Best Buy shares hit an all-time high last week and said the Switch was a key reason that it beat sales expectations. And Capcom stock surged after it announced that Monster Hunter Double Cross will be available on the Switch. So clearly the Switch is on the rise and it's lifting other boats too.
As long as they can make enough to sell.
Yeah.
Some are saying obviously Nintendo didn't correctly predict demand for the Switch. That's come up a whole bunch, or that this is some sort of artificial scarcity. That's happening too.
But the Financial Times quoted industry consultant Sirkin Toto, who said, "You can't go into the management heads, of course, but I think that they're just miscalculated demand," he says. "It's not as though they need to create a buzz, there already is one."
Another analyst, Kazunori Ito, said that forecasting is hard because games like Pokemon Go and Super Mario Run have created a bunch of new Nintendo fans that didn't exist before. He told the Financial Times that Nintendo's user base has expanded beyond the company's expectations, partly thanks to Pokemon Go, which has made it difficult for the company to predict demand even for traditional software such as Zelda and Mario Kart. Although, I think the big thing about Pokemon Go too is that it actually brought in a bunch of people who used to play Nintendo or used to be fans that had then sort of fallen off, and it brought them sort of back into the ecosystem. And there's a lot of those guys too.
Ito predicted that Nintendo will sell about 80 million Switches, which would make it the second highest selling Nintendo console of all time after the Wii, which would be music to Nintendo's ears, now that you think about it. Now all it has to do is, make more of them to sell, because that's how you make numbers.
So they can be on the shelves for the people to buy.
Yeah.
So what do you think of the Switch's production problems? Is this Nintendo's fault? Bad luck? What do we do to Apple? Can we think if we just take a bat to their knees? Do you think that we can get enough Switches for the holiday season? Look,
burn down Apple stores!
I'm open to suggestions. Let us know in the comments.
And for all of your Switch news, as well as when we will be rating the Apple stores, be sure to like this video, and if you're new around here, subscribe to the Now. And the Wall Street Journal quoted Toshiba. That's a word. Demand for our NAND flash memory has been overwhelmingly greater, and I'm gonna say that again. NAND, did I say that right?
Yeah. And some other companies have So will it?